So, any CODEC moments from you, Snake?
Hello, everyone, and welcome to another welcome to another edition of CODEC Moments. I'm Ephraim Scufflegrit, joined here again with Mr. Flash Medallion. How you doing today?
Not too bad. Doing a lot better now. How are you going, man?
Right on. Pretty good. Just finished off another serving shift, which is hopefully got the green card all paid off. So hopefully that comes in soon, and I can start the job hunt again. But it's been really good money the last couple of days. Last night I only had one table, but I got a $130 tip off it, so that was pretty nice.
Sweet.
Yeah, not complaining. And it was funny. I actually had I think like 15 tables tonight total, and made like $10 less than I did off one table last night. But that's how it goes. How you doing?
Yeah, that swings and roundabouts. Hey, I'm not too bad. Just been taking it easy. Just been putting up the mess hall and the combat unit just while I've got some spare time. And as I was saying before, while I'm waiting for my new microphone, so all you people who are at home suffering through my terrible audio, hopefully that could change pretty soon, Tuesday.
Yeah, soon CODEC Moments will pretty much be brought to you by the Blue Snowball microphone.
Yeah, it looks like a nice little piece, so that'll be good.
Right on, cool. So should we just jump right into it?
Yeah, let's do it. So I guess, well, what's new? There's been an update.
Yeah, that's definitely the thing on everyone's mind right now. I'm calling it the nobody is ever happy with anything update, but I quite like it.
Yeah, I found it really interesting. Trying to find the patch notes while we talk about it, but it's not a huge lot. It's mostly new items for FOB mode, isn't it?
Yeah, and I've also heard, I haven't, seen this in notes or anything or confirmed it myself, so this could be, completely off base for all I know, but I've seen at least 3 people mention that, guard patrols and stuff have been changed up a little bit, too, but again, I can't comment on that, definitely.
Yeah, I don't know too much about FOB stuff. It's only actually really recently, since the patch, I've decided I'm going to get back into it a bit. And before I was just kind of just jumping in and, oh yeah, here's a guy with a level 50 platform, that's what I want, and just getting completely my ass handed to me. So now I've been doing training on my own platforms and taking it a bit slower and starting to learn it as opposed to just running around like an idiot.
Yeah, definitely. There is, I haven't actually really played it too much since the patch myself on FOB, but I mean, it's definitely the most challenging part of Metal Gear Solid 5, I think, because by now we both have the Platinum, we both S-ranked every mission, and, there were some missions that gave me some trouble. I'm sure there were some missions that gave you some real trouble, but I still find FOB to be, way more challenging than S-ranking any of the missions that I played.
Yeah, hands down, FOB really is it's the stealth challenge. It's the ultimate in the game. It's the top of the line stealth challenge, and I know they tweaked it recently where now if you stay perfectly stealth, the defender won't come in. But you've got a clock, you've got some pretty tough bases as a rule. I'm hearing people are breezing through it as well, but I find it tricky.
Absolutely, and I think I've had the most fun on FOB, I've had the most fun playing with items in the whole game with FOB, actually, because, you can easily just run in and headshot everyone in one of the story missions or one of the side ops, but with FOB, you really got to get craft. I got the sleep grenades kind of late in the game. That was one of my big FOB things. Active decoys are, my best friend on FOB, really towards the end of my Platinum when I did do FOB, when I was trying to get rid of Demon Snake and trying to steal all the nukes and stuff. I would just run around the outside of most of the platforms just tossing active decoys everywhere, and then get the guards' attention there and just roll through it. But I hear that's not even that viable of an option anymore, so maybe things are being changed up with guard patrols and stuff. But I think like you mentioned, the big thing on everyone's mind right now is the items.
Yeah, and they're right at the far end of the scale. I was just looking through them. So I think the first item that you unlock requires a base development level of 82,
which is quite high.
It's pretty high. Looking at my units, I've got, let's say my combat unit got all S ranks and above except for 10, and that's at level 81. So I guess it's really, obviously, it's encouraging people to buy another FOB.
Which HF mentioned recently that's going to be a little bit hard to do for free for the Japanese players because their mother base coins expire after 6 months.
That's right. Yeah, it'll be interesting to hear about that when that happens. So, yeah, well, let's talk about how they're running the game as as a payment model. Obviously, there's a whole lot of the usual bitching. Microtransactions are ruining it. Have you ever bought any Mother-based coins?
I've not bought any Mother-based coins. I'm loaning the game out tomorrow for like a week or so, which I'm kind of kicking myself for now. But I've been tempted to get some of the Metal Gear Online stuff. I've actually never once been tempted to get a second F.O.B. until now, actually, since like, new items pretty much require it. I mean, it's not that much money. Like, I don't see like a big problem with it. I would blame, like, if you have that big of a problem with it, I would blame more the market than I would Konami as like a single unit, because I mean that's just the state of the market right now. And I think a lot of people are also failing to take in consideration that continuing to support a AAA game and making a AAA game costs like tens of millions of dollars more than it used to. But the price of the game hasn't really changed all that much, even though we have things like inflation, rising development costs, you have to have more manpower, more game dev time. So I mean, like, the costs for them have gone up too. So I mean, it's hard for me to blame them a lot. I'm not going to say I'm a big fan of it by any means, but like, I also kind of understand where they're coming from.
Yeah, it's an interesting kind of back and forth. Well, I agree. I've never felt the need to buy Mother-based coins, like not once. Even now, looking at the stuff, I'm looking forward to starting to push harder and get those S+ ranks, get those S++ ranks to bring my units up now. That's the point where I'm at. And that's gameplay for me. It's really enjoyable. But you talk about supporting a game in development now. It's a funny transition, because a while ago you would put out a game and it was done. And now they've moved to this model where you put out a game kind of before it's done, and you'll patch it up and listen to everybody whinge and bitch and piss and moan and kind of adjust it as it happens. But now that they're doing that, there's an obligation now to have staff stick around and work on a game after it's developed, which costs money. And possibly that's what's led to this microtransaction cheap DLC model, where now it's expected that you keep working on your game after it's out. So now they need to be able to pay for that. So it's a weird back and forth. Guys in the chat, do you feel like you need to buy Mother-based coins? Do you wanted to, or do you feel like you're missing out by not buying them, or you've got disadvantaged by not buying them? Yeah, I get enough from the free reward stuff. Yeah, and like all that free stuff I've been spending on MGO anyway, and Shaman hasn't bought any either. Yeah, I wonder who's out there buying them, if they're just used to buying currency these days, if it's people who are just kind of grown up in that environment a bit. But I certainly don't feel like it's a necessity.
And that's what I was going to say too. Like, I think a lot of, because I mean, we're both old men compared to a lot of the people that we like talk to on the sub and stuff, and I think a lot of people that play Metal Gear Solid have kind of grown up in like the PS3 era, where you know, it's just kind of been par for the course that you have DLC options.
Yeah, and Metal Gear Solid has never been really big on that. Subsistence on PS2 had some free camouflage for download, and then Metal Gear Solid 4 just had some free music and some free Octo camo, and then Peace Walker had all sorts of weird free stuff. They haven't really been down that road. So I also find it weird on that front that people are expecting extra content, like give us more missions and things like that. They kind of stepped away from that in a huge way with Metal Gear Solid 4. There was no equivalent to Substance or Subsistence. Especially playing Peace Walker on the PSP, I was like, this is the perfect platform to give DLC missions, right? Like, it's a one-off mission-based thing. Obviously, the constraints of the PSP meant that wasn't ever going to happen, but looking at the Phantom Pain with that same gameplay structure, if they so desired, it wouldn't be that hard, and it would fit the game perfectly to be pumping out new missions. You don't even have to do voice acting or anything. Just go, boss, go get the target, and then just have a new map design within the existing maps, even just guard placement, special tank placement, all sorts of things.
Absolutely, and like I don't necessarily need the episode 51, or like I'm offended that it's not there or anything, but like bet your ass I would drop like up to probably like $30 if it came out, like for, you know, like even just a story mission like that. But even without the cutscenes and stuff, I'd probably drop, you know, like $10 or $15 on like a pack of decent, you know, extra missions.
Oh, for sure. If there's more stuff to do, I'd buy it. Probably doesn't matter what it is, because more Phantom Pain. Sweet. But I'm surprised that wasn't considered, because it wouldn't be that hard to do with the engine and the way the game's set up. Really, it wouldn't even be that big. Like, it would essentially just be a data pack, wouldn't it? Put the following soldiers in the following locations with a target here and target there. So back to the update. It's an interesting model, because it seems to me like they're pushing up this max cap constantly. You know, it's like the GMP cap's gone up, your resource caps have gone up. Now there's more gear at the top end of the thing. It kind of reminds me of MMO progression a tiny bit. And then every time there's a new expansion, there's a new level of top gear, and then everyone who was at the top all works their way up to that, and then you continue on like that. It's obviously not exactly the same, but it seems similar to that, and it'd be an interesting thing to watch them if they actually got a long-term game plan for FOB mode.
Absolutely. I mean, I'd be curious about that myself. I mean, with the way that the caps are going up, I think it kind of rolls right back into the whole get a second FOB thing, because don't your resources process faster, like if you get another FOB?
Yeah, everything goes faster with the new FOB. You've got a bigger staff cap so you can level up quicker, things like that. Someone who's paid for another FOB isn't going to be inherently better than someone who hasn't, but they can get to a higher position much faster, I guess is the best way to put it.
And you know, the like, I know there's like a lot of people that are upset with that, and like, you know, saying that like they're being forced into buying it with, you know, so they can progress faster, yada yada yada. The only thing I really wasn't a big fan of was like how much they were saying that like microtransactions were going to be like basically like non-existent in the game. Like I wouldn't care.
They're not saying that. They said they're going to focus on time saving. Was the message I was hearing.
Which was true, like in their defense.
Yeah, I don't think there's anything misleading about that. Sure, they're popping up more and more and more, and they're finding better ways to encourage people to use them, like this online weapons development now, where it develops in real time, which is pretty cool, but you can also now speed that up with a microtransaction with mother-based coins. I don't know who is out there doing that, unless there's some ultra-competitive FOB scene that I'm unaware of. The option's there, but it's certainly not necessary. Like, I've got a single FOB, I'm just about ready to start developing the new security items. I've developed all the new weapons, or most of the weapons. There's a couple left to go.
Were there any weapons that you developed that took like an extraordinary amount of time?
Not off the top of my head, because I wasn't paying attention. I just started developing them and went away and played the game, and then went to work, and then came home and had dinner and jumped on the game again, and they were done. It wasn't enough to bug me.
I saw people complaining that like some were taking like 12 days or something like that, but I haven't really encountered anything like that myself.
I don't remember seeing a 12-day one, but maybe I shrugged it off. I know some of these new online dispatch missions. Oh, on that note, though, there's like all these bonuses going on like crazy. There's some really high-level dispatch missions where you can get like 20 S-plus soldiers in one mission. It's a 7-day mission, but things like that. So I've been cycling through those. I could do more of them if I paid money to finish them quicker, but I'm not going to pay money for it. So I'm just getting a real good stock of soldiers while I'm at it.
Yeah, I mean, like, I don't really understand why that's, like, worse than Hitler, like a lot of people are saying, but I mean, it's definitely new. I'm still playing the game. I'm not addicted to it like I was before I got the 100%. I set up the dispatch missions before I gave it away, for sure.
Yeah, I'm a little surprised, actually, because even this afternoon I fired it up and then spent about 3 hours just doing FOBs. I haven't got tired of that yet, which is interesting. And the only reason I'm doing it again is because of the update. So even though I'm not a huge fan of this whole thing, I am very interested purely from a design point of view of what they're going for. And they've obviously got quotas to hit, and they need to say, here's how we're encouraging microtransactions. And, you know, there are shit ways to do it, and there are less shit ways to do it. Purely just out of academic interest, it's quite interesting to watch. And I think they might be onto something.
Oh, yeah, I think so, too. I mean, a lot of people were seem to be afraid that development for MGO and, like, a lot of the FOB stuff was going to pretty much vanish when Konami closed down their LA offices. I think that was just more of a cost thing. Like, it just didn't make sense to have like a whole nother office going in a foreign country when you can just do everything domestically.
Yeah, I'm in two minds. I think it made sense to set up that studio to create the game, but I don't think you need that whole studio around to maintain the game. You know, balance patches and design and things like that. You're not cranking out assets anymore. You're not running all over trying to sort out net code. Once they got it pretty stable, and it is quite stable now, more or less. Now it's the small tweaks, and you don't need a studio for that.
No, I don't think so either. And speaking of the update, there was another big, huge character-related thing with that update.
Yes, there was. So if those people might not be aware, you probably are, because it was all over the everything. But Quiet can now be obtained again.
Yeah, and I think it was you that I saw mention on the subreddit that the code was pretty much there all along. It was pretty much just like flipping a switch.
That's my understanding. Other people have found that, and I'm taking their word on it. But a few people have said, yeah, there's this line of code here that's been there the whole time. So there's been some interesting discussion, because my first thought was, it's funny that they're doing this now that Kojima's left, where it was a pretty bold artistic statement to have, you know, Quiet leave. It's a different conversation, that part on its own. It's a pretty big thing to do in a game where, and in a gaming environment where people kind of expect and feel like they should get everything they want. So that was interesting, but it seems like it's been there since the start, and something happened server side, and now it applies. So if you play, what's the mission called?
Cloaked in Silence.
Cloaked in Silence. If you play Cloaked in Silence 6 times in a row without killing Quiet, then the 7th time it will change from replay to reunion, and then back she comes. So have you gone and got it yet?
I have not, actually. I plan on doing it the moment I get the game back, just because she was like one of my favorite buddies, and like that was one of my favorite parts of the game, was her not coming back and experiencing that phantom pain, and like I had actually lost something. But at the same time, like, I mean, it's two sides of the coin. Like, yes, it was like this big, huge artistic thing, which was pulled off absolutely brilliantly. It was like one of the best thematic things in the entire game that you didn't get her back. There is also the point, though, that like you can't do the game over and go for all the stuff without deleting your whole save file, which I don't want to do. But like, I'm glad that it took a couple months for them to flip this switch or add the code back in or whatever happened, because a lot of us that got the game right off the bat, we kind of got the best of both worlds. We got to experience the loss and feeling that she was never going to come back, and continuing the game without her. And now we can go back and do it all over again. I understand there's going to be people who pick up the game at Christmas, and after that, in the next couple of years, this game's still going to be selling, and they're not going to, unless a friend tells them they see it on the internet or something, or they Google it when they do lose her, which will probably happen. How do I get Quiet back? They're not really going to experience that whole thing.
No, I agree with you entirely. I really enjoyed it as a game design tool, and because it's expressed through the mechanics, through the design itself. I mean, I can only speak to my experience, but a lot of people talked about Quiet being OP, and I couldn't tell you the amount of times on my first playthrough that I probably got through because of Quiet. Whether that's maintaining stealth because of Quiet, or surviving a fight because of Quiet, or probably even beating a boss because of Quiet. Definitely beating Sahelanthropus the first time because of Quiet, because she sat there and like took all the railgun fire for me. So having finished all the missions and finished the story and finished the game, and then losing Quiet, my playstyle was suddenly no longer valid, or my crutch wasn't there. So it's not just about, oh, Quiet was my buddy and I had feelings. I've actually forced to functionally compensate by changing the way I play and by relearning the game and mastering the game better, because I no longer have an invisible perfect sniper who follows me around and makes up for all my shortcomings. So that was, very, very well carried out in the game, and I'm glad that we got a lot of time for it, because as you say, someone who picks the game up now, the first thing they're going to do, if you're anything like the subreddit, is going to post a million threads going, how do I get Quiet back? And then they'll go, oh, why do I have to play the mission 6 times? That's just stupid. So there is something to be lost. You never quite recreate the experience that people had who played it from the beginning.
And I think that's sad that like a lot of people won't get to experience that, but at the same time, I think a lot of the people that picked it up at launch are the kind of people that were more interested in like the thematic things going on in the story. So I hate the term true fan so much, almost like more than anything else. I hate the term true fan.
Amen.
Yeah, but I think some of the true fans got to experience it, and that might be part of the point, that like everyone that got it at launch that was eager to play Metal Gear Solid and wasn't kind of just jumping into it for the
even if you ignore the true fan distinction to say the fans who buy Metal Gear Solid games on launch, that's a perfectly good way of distinguishing it. The people who line up and buy Metal Gear Solid when it comes out, those people got a really good experience, or possibly a better experience than people who are leaving it late. And that's a shame if you look at, say, the patient gamers idea, people who just buy a game a year later because why the fuck not? They're missing out on things like that. But that's life. There's a reason we buy these games, because we want to follow the experience of it being new and of people playing it and finding out about it and whinging about it and all that stuff.
And the whole Quiet thing is why I kind of refer to this update as there's you can't ever please anyone update, because I mean when Quiet was lost, like I saw God knows how many posts like calling Konami idiots and worse than Hitler. So, I want Quiet back. Like they're forcing me to play the game not how I want it to, and they're evil for that. And like their Twitter was just blowing up. It's like fuck you for
so much rage.
Oh,
so
absolutely.
much rage.
And then she came back, and it's more like, oh fuck you, Konami. You're shitting all over Kojima's artistic integrity. And blah 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 blah. Like, I feel so bad for the people that run Konami's social media, because like every day it's just like, fuck you for this. Fuck
you. It's gotta be the worst job. Like before this game stuff started, before MGSV came out, it probably would seem like a sweet job. Like all you got to do is just drop in some Metal Gear Solid references. Like go and look at Robert Peeler's stuff on the Steam forums. Like every time he made a post early on, he's like, "No such thing as friend or enemy on the battle." Ha ha ha! And constantly quoting metalgearsolid. It's like easy job, man. Just pander to people. But when Ground Zero started coming out, well, even back then, is when this mindset, this mentality started picking up, going, "Oh, Konami is selling out, and they're undercutting Kojima, and they're ruining it, and they're trying to shell up, get us money, and ruin the game by telling Kojima to split it in half." And then the name starts disappearing off the box, and it's, oh no, before that it was Kiefer Sutherland. Then Kiefer Sutherland, oh my god, where's David Hayter? Fuck Konami. And then the name came off the box, and it just goes step by step by step. And then the game came out, which is a pretty challenging game in terms of as a work to deal with and to think about what's going on in that game, and everyone just went, ah! So it's been really funny to watch because the idea has been in everyone's heads for more than a year now, and every time something happens, it just confirms it. So it is very funny to watch, and yeah.
Yeah, the hashtag fuck Konami, yeah, you're right. You're right before even Ground Zeroes, it was all about Kiefer Sutherland. And then, like, when we found out that Snake was going to be more silent this time around, which was, like, Kojima said himself, and we know now it was, so that the player can really imprint themselves onto Venom Snake, because now we know that he is us.
I'm iffy on if that's the reason, if we're going to have that conversation. I'm not entirely convinced that that's the reason. Like, he's silent just so that it can be us. It works. I'm not saying it doesn't work.
Tell me you're not on the boat that Kiefer Sutherland is too expensive and that's why he didn't have many lines.
No, I just think it's genuinely a stylistic choice. Like,
oh no, yeah.
Like, not even possibly even any further than that. Maybe it is. I'm not against the idea. I don't think there's no merit to it. I just don't think it's all there is. I have the feeling, judging from, and it's a trap in itself, just following Kojima and what he talks about on his Twitter account, talking about Drive and Mad Max and a lot of these things. I just think he really fell in love with that idea of a character who expresses themselves through action as opposed to words. And then that does tie into, us expressing ourselves by our actions as opposed to picking a dialogue tree with Ocelot or whatever.
Oh yeah, definitely, and I think that's definitely a huge part of it too. But I think it was like going back to the fuck Konami thing. Like one of the most frustrating things I saw about the whole Kiefer Sutherland thing, not having that many lines, was it's because Kiefer Sutherland's too expensive, and Konami forced Kojima to hire a big name actor to sell the game, and now we don't get any dialogue because Kiefer Sutherland's so expensive. Which is interesting because David Hayter came out recently and said that he would have actually been more expensive than Kiefer Sutherland because David Hayter demands double the pay every time he reprises a role.
Right, it is pretty funny. I like the assumption that voice actors get paid by the word. What kind of fucked up, crazy primary school universe do you live in where actors get paid by the word? That one I've never been able to wrap my head around. Possibly having had experience in that, but yeah, the armchair industry critics are always a good time.
Of which we've had many.
Which we have many. So I thought it might be. Do you think do you want to talk about Quiet as a character, or do you think it's really not worth it?
No, I think we could dive into that.
Yeah. All right then. What did you? Let's make a disclaimer. If you get angered by the concept of people talking about gender representation or gender equality, or if you get angered by people going, you know what, that doesn't bother me, just stop listening. Go and read a book. Go watch Transformers if you hate listening to gender equality. Do whatever it is you want to do, but stop listening. Disclaimer over.
I'll let you take it away then.
Oh no, I was about to dump it on you.
All right, let's shoot. What's your question? Give me something to start with.
So, what was your immediate reaction to Quiet? As you knew about her going into the game, but as she came onto the scene inside the game and the experience and over the course of the game, so what was your first reaction?
Definitely attractive. I don't think I've ever once in my life thought wow, this video game character is really hot. She was that.
Yeah.
for sure. There's no denying that, especially with, her dances in front of you in the helicopter and everything. I didn't have a problem with her depiction at all. I thought that the ashamed of your words and deeds thing that Kojima said was a little bit empty, given her explanation for wearing her lingerie out in the middle of a field. But I mean, I wasn't by any means offended by it or anything. I quite enjoyed it, and I mean, it's always been in Metal Gear Solid that the love interest or the female of the game is always going to be kind of scantily clad. I mean, that kind of just goes with the territory. But I mean, I thought she was a very strong part of the story, and the overall themes of Metal Gear Solid 5 was that, this whole thing focused on what kind of damage a language or common language, can do to the world and do to civilizations and cultures and everything. And here's this character that can't even speak. She has no lingua franca anymore. She's deprived of English. She's deprived herself of English, because if she speaks it, then she'll be part of killing every English speaker. I thought that was, a really strong thematic thing of the game. I thought she was a pretty good character.
Yeah, so I definitely agree about the words and deeds thing. And I won't lie, I wasn't really expecting much in terms of that, but I was very cautiously hopeful. There's 5% of me that was really hanging out for a really cool sucker punch on some level. But I didn't really expect it to be very good or for him to deliver, which he didn't. So I'm still in two minds about why he said that, when there's obviously nothing even remotely close to you being ashamed of your words and deeds. Or I don't know what he was getting at there, but it requires more thought. Because he was successful with a lot of stuff when he tried to do it with Quiet. So it makes it weird that he would have failed so miserably. If you divorce her appearance from her as a character, she's a fantastic character. Just nothing else considered. As a character in the game, yeah, I agree with just about everything you said. She's definitely at the forefront of the communication theme, specifically because of the lack of communication, or the lack of verbal communication. But she and Snake can still operate as a team. They do have a shared language, and that's war. That's their means of self-expression, and they can communicate on the battlefield and do what they need to do, which I thought was pretty interesting. Yeah, the appearance, what's to say? It's funny that it actually has nothing to do with her as a character. It's just there. I mean, I judged her character because of appearance, and I was rolling my eyes, and I was like, this is stupid. I didn't research her outfit with the blood all over her tits and all over her body. I was like, I'm not doing this. And then, so I kind of wrote her off as a character, and I didn't really ascribe her very much value because of the way she looked, or because of how I felt she was meant to appeal to me. I thought that was a bit shitty. So I got a bit of a sucker punch at the end when, hey, she can speak English, and then suddenly she leaves. And then for me, maybe it was just well directed, but that moment at the end when she decides to speak and she's calling in the helicopter, that's an excellent sequence going in the context of, every word she speaks is basically going to bring her closer to death. She doesn't waste a word, but she's also incredibly precise. She does a completely professional job of guiding in the helicopter exactly what it needs to know to bring it to the location. It's a really cool sequence, and it hit me really hard. I thought it was very good, but that only hit me like that because I'd written her off. So I thought that was interesting. It's hard to talk about intent when you're getting at this level of reception, but I found it interesting that I pretty much ignored her as a person because of how she looked. There's something in that, I think, because everyone goes, oh, she's just there to titillate. Is it fair to make a character that's just there to titillate? Yes or no? But is it fair to write someone off because of how they're presented? Yeah, I don't know.
I think that scene, because I had said that one of the things I didn't necessarily love about Metal Gear Solid 5 was that all the previous games had this emotional impact on me, where I felt things and had emotional moments and stuff. And I think that scene was probably my favorite in Metal Gear Solid 5 because of like you said, she's basically killing herself to save you. And
as Rishaman mentions, every word is bringing her closer to becoming a WMD. I thought that's a cool way to put it.
Yeah, absolutely. But I do think that her appearance was pretty much supposed to be eye candy, and the only thing that I can think of that he was trying for in that, besides just a tits-in-your-face character, was that he figured that a lot of the gaming community would develop feelings for her if she was basically naked throughout the whole thing. Knowing a lot about the gaming community, if I put her in her underwear, these people will fall in love with her.
That's a very fair statement. But he also seems very aware of, which raises a bunch of terrible questions, but he does seem aware of the movement in gaming to be treating women differently than the way that they are, women characters. So it seems very provocative and very, I'm not going to say it's like a fuck you, but it seems like a very definite, like, hey, maybe he's just doing it for visibility, for promotion, to get people talking, maybe. I just have to wonder why, in this day and age, he would double down on sexy titty characters so much. Yeah, Germain says he called Quiet an antithesis to typical underdressed female characters. And I guess there's something to it in the sense that normally that's all they're there for, is just to be undressed, whereas she's got a whole bunch of shit going on, like character-wise, and she happens to also be undressed either. Yeah, it's interesting. I find I can't defend it. I'm not going to come out and say it's okay that she's like that. Like, oh, that's a shitty way to put it, actually. It doesn't bother me that much, but I could live without it.
I think it has to go either way. Either it was he was trying to be like, oh no, you can have scantily clad women, like they're huge, deep characters, blah, blah, blah. Or he's just a guy that just decided to give the middle finger to, like, the whole argument to be like, oh, well, whatever, I'm going to have a woman in underwear. Yeah. Like, just try and stop me.
The funny thing is, though, it generates conversation about this stuff. Because well, I'd say for most people, it's pretty hard to nail down what he's going for. I've heard people that go, no, you're a fucking idiot, he just did it because he likes tits. And like, well, maybe he did. I'm kind of annoyed at how long it took for me to get an option to put some goddamn clothes on her. And on top of that, like, the XOF outfit looks really cool. It looks really good on her, as like art design wise. It looks like a really cool Shinkawa character. So it's kind of annoying that you had to go so far just to get that outfit. So that was funny.
Definitely, and I do want to hit on Cheer's question, too. Is Quiet alive or dead after that whole ordeal?
I don't think it's a hugely important... It's a good question, but the answer doesn't matter. Like, the point is she's left. She's no longer on the battlefield. Whether that's because she's dead or because she's left is less important than the fact that she had to leave the battlefield because of her decision to... Well, she says she will remain quiet, but she chose to save Big Boss. And interestingly enough, so she gave up her identity as Quiet by speaking, where compared to all the other characters like Eli and Huey and Kaz, who have got this thing that their life is built around, and they refuse to give that up, and they don't change, and that's like their tragic flaw. All these people who refuse to move forward, Quiet actually did. And she makes her the only heroic arc, really, in the game, of someone who had made a vow of silence, but she looked around and realized that it was no longer appropriate to the circumstances, so she spoke in order to save Venom's life. And that required her to leave out of heaven. So I thought that was really cool. But whether she's dead or just, like, living in a hut in the middle of nowhere is kind of irrelevant. The point is she left.
I think it's interesting, too, that her motivation was revenge as well, just like all those other characters you mentioned, and she was really kind of the only one that, like, grew out of that.
Yeah, she was the only one who rethought it, which, again, makes her really one of the only heroic characters, at least on that front. Venom's a bit of a different story. Yeah, she's the only one who changes and moves forward, and the consequences of that is her leaving the game, which is really cool and really interesting, and it makes her a female character with quite a lot of agency. In fact, the only female character I can think of whose agency got in the way of my enjoyment of the game, because what she wanted was more important than what I wanted.
Absolutely. And speaking of like the characters not changing and yada yada yada, something dawned on me the other day when I was thinking about Kaz, because I mean, like, after you kill Skullface, and like even the player experiences this whole "what do I do now?" like in Chapter 2, yeah. Like, you've exacted your revenge and so on and so forth. You hear the soldiers talking about, oh well, Commander Miller is just pretty much an asshole now, because even though Skullface is dead, revenge was his reason for waking up in the morning, and Kaz himself goes into it and saying, like, we still have this phantom pain, like, my revenge is still there even though Skullface is gone. I think Kaz as a character, after he experienced the loss of the first Mother Base, and after Skullface, he has this need for revenge, and it seemed to me like he was so, after he found out about the whole Venom Snake thing, he was so fast to declare revenge on Big Boss now. And like, I think part of his character in Metal Gear Solid 5 was that he needs revenge, so as soon as he found out the Big Boss was going to go off and do his own thing, he's like, oh, well, here's someone else I can exact revenge on. Now I have a reason to be motivated.
He had to fill that gap, because he's got nothing else. He's just set himself up. He's defined his identity around getting back. Like, it's the first thing he says as soon as Venom walks back. It's like, oh, we're going after Cypher. Like, they're an entity bigger than nations, and they do all the stuff, but we're going to take them down because that's what we're going to do. it turns out that it wasn't really Cypher, it was this kind of other part of Cypher. So, we're going to get that guy, we're going to get that Skullface guy, and now he's gone. Well, where am I going to wrestle this thing that I've got going? Where's my outlet? And then, yeah, he decides, oh, well, fuck Big Boss. He can go to hell. Now I'm going to get him. And he winds up basically joining up with Cypher, like the people who he previously was trying to hate. So, no, that's a really good point.
I'm so glad we got an explanation on that, too, because that was probably the biggest question I wanted answered going into Metal Gear Solid 5 was how do Big Boss and Kaz end up on completely opposing sides?
Yeah, and it was answered in the way that nobody expected.
No, not at all. Like, I think a lot of people were expecting like this whole thing, like at the end of the game, like myself included. Big Boss was and Kaz together were gonna go back to Foxhound, like kind of like incognito, and be like, all right, well, I'm gonna keep building Outer Heaven like behind the scenes, and like you're gonna train all these people, and like we'll still be like in secret contact together. And it's completely opposite. Kaz is like, well, fuck Big Boss, he's just an asshole.
Yeah, the part that makes me interested is, so you've got like Peace Walker Kaz, like cheery, fun Kaz, and he is performed in such a way that he's very reminiscent of Liquid's impression of Master Miller. So the interesting and completely irrelevant and unnecessary question is, if that's the version that Solid Snake's familiar with, like, did Kaz just get super cheery and fun when he got back to Foxhound?
Yeah, that's a great question, actually, because I mean, like, they have this great rapport together, like in Metal Gear Solid. Like, Solid Snake's like super excited to have Kaz like on his support staff.
Yeah, he's like, Master, what are you doing here? Like, well, Snake, we're in Alaska, and they have this awesome thing going on. So that's a question that keeps me up at night. That doesn't mean anything.
I bet Kaz kind of would go back to the whole cheery thing, because I mean, by the time that Solid Snake was, you know, like adult enough to be going into Outer Heaven, and especially Shadow Moses, I mean, he's getting kind of close to the age where like Big Boss and Kaz would have met up. So it's almost like Kaz is like has his best friend back.
Yeah, that's an interesting one, because Kaz did get his best friend back, but he was too wrapped up in revenge to really see what was happening. Like, he gets pissed off that the real Big Boss won't come and be with him or whatever it is. But if you think about it, like, Big Boss woke up and Zero had gone and made a complete copy of him, of his psyche. So he's now been given the ability to be in two places in the world, anywhere, you know. That's only two. He could have another Big Boss going, running hits for him, doing all sorts of things. But he chooses to take that Big Boss and send him back to go get Kaz and help him realize his dream. Like, yes, that plays into Big Boss's advantage, and so you could say that Venom's being used, but he's also getting what he wants, and Kaz is also getting what he wants. Like, even though he's being used, you could say that. That's the difference between the three of them. Even Ocelot, really, he's kind of using himself in a really weird way, but all he wants is to support Big Boss, so he tricks himself into thinking Venom's Big Boss, and he gets to live the dream of being a Big Boss's right hand and supporting him, which is a really interesting difference in those three characters who are being played by the real Big Boss. They're all kind of getting what they want. Apparently, if you ask some people, it's a big betrayal because it's not real, or if you ask Kaz, it's not good enough. Yeah, I found that interesting. Kaz could have gotten over it and gone, wow, what an honor. Big Boss has got serious plans, and he's got another Big Boss, and of all the things he could have done, he sent him to help me and be with me, and that's really cool. But no.
Yeah, he's just so motivated by revenge. Like, well, I'm not with him. I'm not building this, but he's rejecting my idea of turning this into a business, which, of course, like spirals wildly out of control. And
which has failed once, and has like half ruined the world after we did it. But man, it's my idea.
And like that's the best part, is that Kaz realizes that on the mission where I think it's White Mamba, actually. Yeah, it's White Mamba, where you first encounter Eli. Like right when you drop into like ravine area, like Kaz is on the radio and he's like, "Man, this whole like war economy thing we started got really fucked up, and there's people like dying all over the world like under no flag, and like the world's fucked now. Oh, what? Big Boss doesn't want to keep that going? Fuck him."
No, it's Pitch Dark, isn't it? It's the first Africa mission when you're crawling through the jungle. They start filling you in.
Right.
That doesn't matter, but yeah, you're right. It's like, yeah, the PS is spread everywhere, and they're trying to copy you, and yeah, the whole world's turned to shit. It's like, but my idea.
Yeah, but this is gonna work. We'll just do it again. It'll be fine this time.
This time we'll build the platforms away from the center, and nothing will go wrong.
No one will attack us. We won't have far-reaching global implications. Just turn the world to complete shit because of like we're just motivating companies to start up wars of their own and all these proxy wars. And no, it'll be fine. and burgers.
Yeah, hamburgers. It's all good. Do you want to talk about
Venom?
the thing we're going to talk about? Yeah, Venom.
Yeah, actually, I think that was actually like a pretty good segue to go into it. Actually, with
I think so. Yeah.
you know, like they could have all gotten what they wanted because they all have Big Boss. Like he is in two places at once, and this goes out to Bald Eagle 86 messaged me about this idea. He had a couple ideas, and I really liked this one. That for so long, Zero was trying to create another Big Boss between Solid and Liquid. While the Les Infanta Reed project was going on, or if you ask Ocelot, like Les Enfants Terribles. But he tried so like, and then there was Solidus, who was a perfect clone of Big Boss on the genetic level, and then he creates Venom. But the whole thing with Twins and Solidus was that Zero had this like grand idea for them, and they were going to grow up to replace Big Boss as the hero. And then he creates Venom Snake, which wasn't even for his own goals. It was basically just to keep Big Boss alive. That was the end goal with making Venom who he was. And the funny thing about that is that Venom turns out to be the perfect copy of Big Boss that Zero had wanted through the whole cloning project, and then he does this thing that's completely irrelevant to his own goals. He turns out to be the perfect copy.
Well, yeah, but he's too perfect a copy. Because he's a perfect copy, like, the reason they clone Big Boss is because they want his abilities, but they don't want his baggage. And, like, in theory, Solid and Liquid and Solidus won't have all these issues that Big Boss had, like feeling betrayed by the government, feeling betrayed by the government and going through all this crap of killing the boss and all this stuff. Like, that's why they wanted them. They wanted the soldier just as good as Big Boss, but who wasn't pissed off and have all these funny ideas. So by making a perfect, clone, as it were, a mimetic clone of Big Boss, that's Zero acting against his own interests in a huge way, because now you have another Big Boss who's equally as pissed off as the original Big Boss. It's not a good idea. It's a terrible idea. And the only reason he did it is to keep his friend alive. He basically scuttled all his plans. He had this big plan for uniting the world, and he risked that plan to keep his friend alive, which is pretty interesting.
I think that's an excellent point, that because of the emotional baggage and stuff, like you can't, like you said, this guy's just as pissed off as Big Boss. But do you think if Zero hadn't have lost his mind because of Skullface and basically became a vegetable, had he seen how perfect of a copy and how talented that Venom was, do you think that maybe it would have crossed Zero's mind to maybe do another Venom type thing with like a mimetic clone, but kind of like alter the memories and just kind of like leave out the fact that the U.S. government made him kill the boss and like the whole Peace Walker incident?
I don't know if you can alter the memories, but that we're getting into weird theory here. I don't know if that's an option. They were able to give this guy all of Big Boss's combat mission data and all that kind of stuff. I don't know how you would go about changing that. I don't know. Keep in mind that Zero had given up on the idea of copying Big Boss years ago anyway, like in 1976, so like, man.
That's very true.
Although that raised an interesting point. The Venom project, we'll call it that, would quite possibly have already started. So is that why? No, it's not, because the Patriots were running L'Enfant-Terrible. For whatever reason, they'd abandoned that project. So who knows what was going on in their heads, but Venom as a clone of Big Boss, I don't think that's meant to replace the other clones or really be a clone for any other purpose other than to trick whoever it is that wants to kill Big Boss. Like, my understanding is that Venom was meant to die in the hospital. Like, all go to plan. They'd storm in, kill Venom, Big Boss would be gone, and they go, yep, Big Boss is dead, and then he stays underground and does whatever he wants. Big Boss kind of threw a wrench in the plans a little bit and decided to rescue this guy and get him out of the hospital and kind of use him towards his own goals.
That's a good point. I agree with most of that. I don't know if it was necessarily the plan that Venom would die because of the tape where we hear Zero talking to Kaz, where he's kind of gearing Kaz up to team up with Venom with the whole like, I'll let you know the code name. No, it's good.
No, you did right. I didn't think about that. All right, let's go with that. Question really is, what the hell did Zero expect this guy to do? Like, unless the distraction was also part of the plan, that kind of gets a bit weird. But yeah, clearly either way, Zero was like, okay, this world government, this AI thing, you know what, I'm just going to put it on the back burner and we're going to worry about keeping Big Boss alive, which is really sweet and really sad.
Do you think, because I think I can't remember if it was probably the line chat we were discussing this, I can't remember if you were here for that. Do you think Big Boss ever heard that tape or knew that Zero did all that for him?
The secret tape of Zero's visit?
Yeah.
No, I don't think he did. I think the idea of those secret recordings, they're clearly marked as secret recordings, is meant to suggest that it's for the audience and nobody else heard it.
I completely agree with that, because I mean in Metal Gear Solid 4, Big Boss comes to the realization, he's like, I wonder what he would have thought about me.
That's another one of the more heartbreaking elements of the communication theme coming back, that lack of communication. Once whatever it was that happened between the two and they fell apart and they were never quite able to get on the same page again, to the point where neither of them really wanted to talk to the other. And like Zero says, I wish you'd come and seen me. And it's like, well, what options did they have? Like, it's not like Zero tried to approach Big Boss to talk it out. He just kept trying to like manipulate him into doing shit.
Yeah, and like I think like a lot of the whole points between Peace Walker and Metal Gear Solid 5 was that like probably at least 80% of their contracts were like through cutouts of Cypher.
Oh no, absolutely. I was just making this note the other night when I was working on my video that I'm doing, my playthrough. The Honeybee mission. Cars, if you listen to the briefing, it's like, yeah, so this is a pretty sensitive operation, and the company, that's the CIA, can't be seen doing it, so we're doing it for them. It's like, you fucking idiot! Like, obviously the CIA is Cypher. And like, have you not learned your lesson, and you're still taking contracts for Cypher? Fucking hell. I don't know what options you'd have. Like, the CIA would be putting out most mercenary contracts in the 80s. It's pretty obvious. There's a lot of shit going down. So, yeah, they're still, like, sticking to this Countries Without Borders thing in a huge way by saying, well, we're not going to turn down Cypher just because of politics. We're still going to take the job. Like, yeah, it's weird, eh?
Yeah, it's like the whole time Zero was like, I want you to be my army, and Big Boss and Kaz were like, fuck you, and then Cypher or Zero, whoever, was just like, okay, well then we'll just hire you to do it then.
Yeah, which doesn't seem to be a problem with anybody. But maybe that's it. Maybe it's not a problem. Maybe Big Boss is more concerned with being placed under that kind of political authority where suddenly they are doing shitty jobs for political reasons and taking falls for political reasons. Whereas if you're going to just hire us to do a mission, then we'll go and do it however we goddamn want. And that includes not sending soldiers on suicide missions or whatever.
Yeah, exactly. He's just kind of like indifferent to the whole thing, probably like whatever, like as long as like me and my guys have like a place to fight, place to have guns in our hands, like that's all I really want, so whatever.
Yeah, which is a very, very interesting.
Really all he wanted, like, I guess now we know it was Venom that said this in Metal Gear 1 and then Big Boss again in Metal Gear 2, is that like all they really want is for war to be happening. Like that's the end goal, like just perpetual warfare. Like it doesn't matter who we're fighting for, it doesn't matter who we're fighting against. As long as there's fighting, then we'll always have a place.
Yeah. So that's where we start getting back into this conversation of, did Big Boss fall from grace? And he was kind of already there. Well, I guess it was the end of Peace Walker, isn't it? From now on, call me Big Boss. And really, that was his point. And I think this game drums that in a lot harder than people were expecting, because everyone wanted Big Boss becoming a villain to be about Big Boss murdering children and all that kind of thing.
I think you're right. Like I think like Metal Gear Solid 5 was probably most definitely an idea by the end of like development cycle of Peace Walker, judging just by the timeline and everything. But I think when the story was written, like Peace Walker definitely, like I didn't have like really any more questions or anything by the end of Peace Walker. I was like, okay, well he's definitely Big Boss now. He's got this nuke. He's got his outer heaven, and we even get that speech at the end. This is outer heaven.
Awful speech. It was kind of nicely written, but Hater just destroyed that speech, man.
He destroyed a lot of things in Peace Walker.
No more country, no more liberty,
No philosophy, no ideology.
It's fucking shocking.
Yeah, this is outer heaven.
Is outer heaven.
Yeah, but no, it's interesting you bring that point up too, because from Snake Eater onwards, each game has closed the loop in a sense. Like Snake Eater as the first prequel really tells you all you need to know. That this is a guy who was an naive soldier who suffered great personal loss due to his country, and really that connects all you need. And then Portable Ops came out, and it wound up with Big Boss with this massive stash of money in command of the Foxhound unit, and you go, cool, this is where we set off. Now he goes and builds Out of Heaven, and he runs Foxhound. And then Peace Walker takes it a step further and goes, well, here's how I become this mercenary that drifted around the world, and now he's formed Out of Heaven, and we're all ready to go. And then that closes the loop. And then the Phantom Pain again inserts itself and does something very, very different. And instead, I guess kind of challenges the idea that a villain is someone who goes around shooting children and firing nukes.
I think that's a good point, and I admit, like, at first, like, my first, like, 3 or 4 weeks with Phantom Pain, like, that point was missed on me, but, you know, after, I said this in chat the other day, too, like, going for the 100% really made me appreciate the game a hell of a lot more than I did at first, and, like, especially, like, hearing, like, everyone else's thoughts on it, like, more and more, too.
Yeah, I found that with every Metal Gear, though. Like, 100%ing every Metal Gear Solid gives you time to reflect and time to really play around with it and put things together in your head a lot more. I highly recommend it to everybody to go for 100% on these games because you'll get a better perspective on it. There's more room for appreciation. But I think there's a little element of bias too. Like I talk about how Metal Gear Solid 2 is my favourite, and a lot of that's part of gameplay. But I think I love it because I've played so much of it, and I played so much of it because I started to love it, and it's like a self-reinforcing loop.
I think that's happened with me with Peace Walker too, actually, which is now like one of my favorites. I didn't pick up Peace Walker for a long time. And then I finally got it, and I was playing through. I was like, "Oh, this game's all right." And then, like, I got to the end. I was like, "I think I can S rank some," and went back and S ranked a couple. I think I can go for the platinum trophy. And then by the end of it, I was like, "This game is fucking amazing."
Yeah, I find all of the Metal Gears have been like that. Even Metal Gear Solid 4, which can get a bit overwhelming after like your third playthrough, and you're like, "I might be done here." But then I went through every emblem and went to my big boss rank and did the whole lot. And by the time I came out the other end, yeah, I was still as in love with it as I was after the first time and as I was after the 10th time.
Fuck 100% on Metal Gear Solid 4. I hated that shit so much.
I made my peace with it. Like, I sat down for like 10 days to grind out those last, those 8 mutually exclusive emblems, like 4 cats and 4 bugs, like centipede, spider, scorpion. They're all slightly different combinations of being over or under a certain statistic. And then there is Chicken Run, but we've been over that before.
Absolutely, and I think we've got about 5 minutes left here. Do you want to talk about 100% in the series? I think that would be a good quick topic.
Yeah, I don't know what to say. I just really, really enjoyed 100%ing Phantom Pain to the point where, like, as I've said, I did it and I realised I wasn't really done with the game. So for me, Chapter 2 has been way bigger than Chapter 1 because FOB mode, really, if you look at the game structurally, FOB mode, S ranking, all objectives, development, all that stuff, finishing side ops, that's all a part of Chapter 2. That's all. If anybody disagrees with me, go and find the mission in Chapter 2 called A Proxy War Without End. Wow, there's a name for a mission. And listen to the briefing, listen to what Cars talks about. Chapter 2 is very much about that. Just keep on growing, baby.
Absolutely. And I mean, if anyone's listening and was like thinking about going for 100% in Phantom Pain or at all daunted by it, I mean, it's not that challenging. It's a grind for sure. It's a big time sink, and you'll come across missions that are hard as shit to S rank, but it's a lot of fun, and it's not impossible by any means.
It never felt that grinding to me. I think the only thing I really felt like I was grinding was the animal rescue.
Oh, yeah.
Which seems really out of place. The whole animal system in this game seems really out of place. So
I thought so too. Like, I felt like maybe there was plans to do something more with it, like maybe like airdropping in animals or something. It feels like it's a piece of something else.
If there's any cut content in this game, if there's any hashtag let cut content in this game, it's definitely the animals and nothing else. It seems really strange. And the part that bugs me is that like the rare animals don't exist on the map. You can only get them in the cages. Which seems like a letdown. Like, I was looking forward to doing a nature documentary of hunting these fuckers down and finding them. I wasn't able to do that because they don't exist.
Yeah, I was so let down. I was like, I'm not going to use a guide. I'm just going to go out into the wild with D-Dog, and I'm going to hunt these guys down with my Trank sniper, and it's going to be awesome. And then, once I got to it, I was like, all right, well, at least, like, what general area will I find these? And, like, 80% of them are like, helicopter into this area, get out and drop a capture cage, and then get back into your helicopter.
Yep. Yeah. See, I remember I was talking before about my hunting loadout. Like, I was really looking forward to that. I had, like, a real cool hunting shotgun and a cool outfit and a dog for tracking. And now all I do is, like, find birds, send D-Dog over to the birds, tell them to bark, and they fly up and I shoot them. And I'm pretty much using, like, my latest generation console to play a very high-definition version of Duck Hunt.
Out of before we wrap up, out of all of the platinum trophies and stuff in the series, what game did you think was? I mean, I probably already know the answer to this. What game do you think was the most fun for the 100%? Not necessarily like the most challenging or the shortest or easiest. What did you have the most fun getting 100% for? I think I might have asked you this actually.
You might have. I can't remember what I answered. V would be my default answer, my gut answer. I might have to think about it more, but this has been the most fun, 100%. Like, and I went beyond 100% too. Like, I decided to get every emblem, even though they don't count. That was fun. That was fucking fun. I just love doing road trips and parking in Africa and just sweeping through all the side ops. I loved a lot about the box checking in this, or doing road trips around the outposts to get all the emblems, the emblem words and stuff like that. I think this was the most fun, but I also really enjoyed 100%ing Peace Walker, so maybe I'm a freak.
They're definitely, I mean, Metal Gear Solid 4 is only long because of the emblems, but they're definitely like the two. Actually, I don't know, 2 might have been the longest. Come to think of it, with all the dog tags and the VR missions, that was definitely the most challenging, wouldn't you say? 2,
easily, yeah. I never had a problem with dog tags. I know you mentioned them a lot, but I got all the dog tags on Metal Gear Solid on PS2 because I wanted 100% the game, so I did. And then Substance came out and it required a new save file, so I went and got all the dog tags on that again. So by the time the HD collection came around, I could do the damn thing in my sleep. That wasn't a problem for me.
I didn't think it was challenging to get the dog tags. I think it was like maybe the grindiest part of it.
Yeah,
for sure. Like that was, tear my eyeballs out sometimes. But I mean, I've said this before a million times that I set up my Platinum and 2 to where I would do a difficulty of the dog tags, then I would do 20% of the VR, then I'd do a snake tail, which all worked out perfectly because there's 5 snake tails, and then it tells you the percent on VR. There's 5 difficulties.
I was just about to say the exact same thing. The secret, really, to enjoying 100% is just to come up with a really nice little pace schedule for yourself. And Phantom Pain worked for that too. I was going all over the board before. So like my trophies weren't unlocking because I wasn't focusing on one thing. I was keeping it fun. I wasn't going to do it if I hated it. So I made it enjoyable. And again, Phantom Pain is one of those games where it's whatever you want it to be. So you can make it how you like it. Side ops, you could run around them with stealth camo and just get them out of the way. Or you could go the other direction and do like really minimal loadouts and make it a challenge for yourself, which is what I ended up doing. And I just got a whole lot of fun out of it. Like, I found myself in situations I'd never been in single play because I'd just been, in the main missions, because I've been gearing up to win and to do well. Where in the side ops, I started gearing up to challenge myself and start, poking at the systems a bit. So, yeah, you can make the game what you want, and that's fucking cool.
Oh, absolutely! With the side ops for the trophy and stuff, like I was all over the place too. Like I would do stealth camo. Then on the next one, like I would develop a new item and be like, oh, let's try out this new item on the next side op, see how that works. And then when I got like the knockout decoy, I was like really excited to try that. And so I like rolled into a couple outposts, and I think like 3 side ops in a row just using that. And for the main missions, like the objectives and the S rank, what I would do, like I thought this was kind of a cool like gathering intel kind of way to do it. Like I did all the missions in order, but I would roll in and do the objectives, usually with stealth camo, I'll admit, and to kind of like really get to know the mission. While I was getting all the objectives, I was like studying the guard paths and stuff and taking notes and like figuring out how everything worked in that mission. Then once I got all the objectives doing that, I felt comfortable enough to just go for the S rank run.
Yeah. So you can really just tweak it and take it at your own pace, eh?
Yeah, the amount of freedom we're given in this game to do anything, whether it be the story or 100% or whatever you want to do, it's just absolute freedom to just do whatever you want and just go nuts and just like have fun however you want.
Yeah, I'm loving the playthrough I'm recording at the moment. There's no HUD, tuxedo, silence pistol, nothing else, basically. Magazines and a cardboard box, I think. Yeah, in a sense. So that's been really cool, and I'm recording it to hold myself to it to make sure I do it properly. And then I find myself doing FOB defenses or raids, and I forget to switch it all off, back on again. So suddenly I've got like this really intense FOB experience with no HUD. I usually take the tuxedo off. I highly recommend everybody to switch all the HUD off completely. The game can be played. It's designed to be played without any of that stuff. And that's the closest you're going to get to like an extreme or a hard mode, I think.
Definitely. And when we do, next time we have Perfect Stealth on, I was talking to him, I think that's like a topic that we want to talk about with him. So stay tuned for that, is how the difficulties and how speedrunning has changed so much with Phantom Pain.
Oh, for sure. Yeah, that'd be a great topic.
Definitely. Well, I think we're about running out of time here, so that should do it. Thanks, everyone, for tuning in, and thanks, Cheer and Germo, for joining us live in the chat. It was a blast.
Yeah, this is a real good one. Thanks, guys.
Yeah, this one was a lot of fun, definitely. All right, cool. See you next time, Flash.
Next time, kids.